See you. Hola, halito, hello. Gershon, I wanted to talk about how we hurt the ones close. So, I've considered this a lot over the last 20 years. There's a lot of situations when I was the big time pro skateboarder. I still ride it and probably better than I was back then. But I'm not working with the corporate, I'm not on the corporate status now. So, so back in the days, like I would be around certain people and I would realize that like a big reason why I would withdraw from people as a majority in a bigger sense was that when you get around people and they get comfortable with you, you'll find that you get attacked, or you may actually be the one doing the attacking. And this is really based on insecurities, because when you get to know people, when you think you've gotten to know people, you think that there's no more depth. And sometimes you peeve about little things, but those things that you're peeving about generally is a reflection of yourself. Like I was talking about in another talk like this, we get annoyed with the things that we can't change, and we want to, or not that we can't change, but it's in others that we want to change it. But we don't really want to change it in ourselves, because a lot of us don't see that what we're really bothered by is something that we exude. So I would spend a lot of time alone. I spend a lot of time alone. I would withdraw from people, because when people would start getting comfortable with me, they'd show their face. And I would probably do the same, like I was talking about how I'd pick at Rodney for certain little things, but I realized that it was insecurity, it was angst. We want to look at the world as what's the problem, so we have conflict with it, but the conflict starts within. And it's interesting how most of the people that probably can't do that, they've lost all their friends, or their friends don't take it anymore. They go onto the internet and become trolls. I think trolls are funny, and at times I have become the troll, and I like to troll trolls, especially those that come after me, because they come after me looking for a certain outcome, and when I usually just kind of I look at it as a conversation. It's like, what do you want? Okay, so you want to try to tell me about yourself by like pointing these things out, saying that I'm that. The last guy that was trying to troll me, he was claiming I was a bigot. And really, I'm trying to break down the whole concept of bigotry especially with this black and white thing. We're not tints. We're all shades of brown, and we're all humans, and hue being the root word is of color, basically. We're men of color, or man of color, but woman is as well. The womb is where we come from, so that is more important than the man. Well, actually it's two pieces of a whole, so neither is any more important. However, from what I've realized, and even to the date, patriarchy is a false pretense. It's matriarchy, because everyone has a mother. No one came from the penis. Like you may have been shot out, through sperm, and you were one of a million, or however many made it. But you won the race. Whoever you are now, you were the one that won the race. So you are special, but you came out of a womb. And so the woman, it's like, if you have issues with the woman, then that means you have issues with yourself. So, and that when I was younger, I had conflict with my mother. I mean, to the date, there's still things that I still have to address, and that's why I'm around her, is because you have to recognize that any of the conflicts, those things that we want to hold against other people, are the things that we can't change now. And what we have to do is accept what was, and then try to move forward. So in my trying to move forward, I had to reconnect with my mother. And not just my mother, but my siblings, because I'm estranged. I offer who I am freely now, as opposed to, like withdrawing and just going, well, you don't accept me, so therefore I'm going to just leave. Well, I mean, I can leave, but I still am open for the relationship, instead of trying to run away from it, because the idea of being broken is leaving pieces of yourself unchecked, unclaimed. And those pieces are the things that you don't want to accept, that you run away from. So I don't know, I had an interesting childhood. There was nothing truly bad about it. I was just separated from my other siblings and my mother for a short period of time, but that short period of time when you're young seems so long. And not until I was in my 20s did I feel like this was a problem. And that was because life started to change. Like I realized that skateboarding was something I love, and I still do it, obviously, because I love to do it. But I was conflicting between it being something I loved and it being a job, and confusing the two, because the job is commercialism, and writing it, I could write it whenever, and it wasn't the writing it that was the problem. It was the interactions with other people, and obviously with a cracked foundation, some of the other people, these conflicts grew a lot bigger than they even needed to be. And so instead of me smothering it, I threw gasoline. And I don't know, I'm masochistic, obviously, because of the skateboarding. It's like you get whacked in the shins. If the reason why some people that tried skateboarding when they were younger didn't continue is because when they got hit in the shin, or however they got hurt, they realized that wasn't for them. And I really didn't have any problem with it, and I know many other people that obviously didn't have much problem with it, because we still going out there and get whacked in the shins. So this is but that's life, though. It's like you're gonna have relationships that are gonna be hard, and there's gonna be a lot of situations where you can't control somebody else and how they react to certain situations. So we'll abuse or we'll be abused, and it goes both ways with relationships, especially if you're dealing with other people that are insecure, which that's generally everybody. We all have a certain level of insecurity that we exist with, and that's a society indoctrination, from commercialism to just being around, feeling that we needed to be around the group. And the group, for me, was more of an issue, because most of the time when we were in groups, we didn't get much done. I felt like, well, hey, the more people you have, the more likely you should be able to produce something. But that usually works against that concept, because everybody wants to do it what they want to do and how they want to do it. So unless they have a mind to see things to fruition, they're gonna complicate things. It's not. I can't just be pointing a finger, because when you point the finger, how many fingers are pointed back at you? So, the more that you're in groups, the more that you're used to being around people, the more likely you're gonna have conflicts, and most of the conflicts will be petty, because it's just like, every day you're seeing the same people and hanging out with the same people, and the same habits are reoccurring. So because of this, there's the conflict. But some people really don't learn how to actually deal with conflict so well, so they hold grudges. I usually try to get rid of grudges. If anything, I'll just not interact with people that I know that there's been problems with, because if we had conflict and we never resolved it, then that means that we're going to constantly go back and forth with these problems. So that it's better to not deal with that, because if there's no intention of actually building, then what's the point in trying to keep something that's not healthy? That's my perspective on it. You know, some people want to, you know, you'll apologize, they'll apologize, and they want to hang out like it nothing. There was never any conflict, but there's an underlying issue, and the reason why people have conflicts and those things, if they're not addressed, you know. Actually, that was something I was talking about to my mother about, and it's something I've been studying a lot. Is the generational gaps, how they happened, and what goes on. Some people can move on, but see, the bigger picture is never addressed because it's the sickness started long ago, and it steamrolls, and some people can actually diffuse part of it, but you can't end everything because there's a disconnect that's been growing with every generation. So within my family, there's people that could have maybe changed certain things, but they passed before it was their time. However, within their time, they did offer solutions for the generations. And like, my mother has seen a different life than my grandmother, which my grandmother had a different life than my great grandmother, and so forth and so on. I'm talking matriarchy, you know, not patriarchy, because the men really don't generally raise us. You know, they come secondary. You know, they teach us how to actually be men to an extent if they know how. But if the women are raising us, most people are so caught in their emotions, and it's not always the truth, but a lot of people are so caught in their emotions but don't really cope with their emotions, don't deal with their emotions properly. So we have a lot of like boys running around now just nitpicking at everything. If I'm gonna bring up a subject, I'm really looking for a solution. I'm really trying to resolve certain issues that I know actually exist. So that's a big reason why I actually have even started doing this series. I would like for people to consider these things, because I mean, I know it goes through people's heads, but society keeps us so diluted. We're so confused based on like trying to keep up with the Joneses or whoever you're chasing or whoever you're racing. You know, and that's a funny thing, because you know, this whole the tent cult. The tent coding is you know, the caste system. So the race. You know, when I was growing up, they repeated the human race. So how is the human race further divided into different races? This is ridiculous. So, but you have people that are caught up in that. So because of the color of skin, but they're confusing it for tint, they want to say that, well, you're inferior or I'm superior, but superiority is just a natural thing. Inferiority is something that you're like, obviously, if you have to try to address it, then you feel inferior. You're trying to claim that you're better than somebody else, then you obviously are looking at somebody else that you feel is better than you. So there's nothing superior about that. There is no such thing as anybody that's superior just naturally. I mean, we all have a different makeup, and there's things that can kill us just the same. I mean, germs. They're smaller than us. They're microscopic, and they can kill us quicker than any of us can kill each other. But we're so caught up in like, oh, look at his skin. He's lighter. He's a pale guy, or he's a dark guy, and you know, they're. I hate them. You hate yourself first if you think that way. But. It's neither here nor there, but you getting back into the trolls on the internet. People, it's funny how people they follow people that they don't like. I had this troll. He was so bothered by me, but I pretty much had to block him after a while, because I was just like, I couldn't figure out why somebody that doesn't like me would be following me. And somebody brought that up today, and when I thought about it, you know, I had already knew, but it's jealousy, and the jealous people need to see or hope to see somebody fail. And fail is you only fail if you don't get up and keep trying. You know, if you don't succeed in a certain way, you have to figure out a better way to go about it, because what does water do? Water finds a way. You know, like Bruce Lee said, be like water. I think tomorrow's his birthday. Bruce Lee was, you know, this dope, you know, Jet Li and all those dudes that came after Jackie Chan. But Bruce Lee had like the philosophy that was projected beyond the fighting, and martial arts is actually more brain influence than it is physically. So I think about, I learn about any and everything I can, so I can transcend the ideas that are placed to try to cage us in. So you know, looking at what I do with trolls, or what I do with anybody that like they're projecting their negativity, is like I put the question. You know, they'll make statements, and I'll bring back a statement, something simple, just to, you know, have them look in the mirror. You know, even though they don't want to look in the mirror, even though they think that they're not, it's gonna get them, because the frustration will just, when they don't get the outcome that they're expecting, the frustration sets in. And that frustration means that whatever I'm doing is actually starting to bother them, or whatever, anybody that does this to them, it starts to bother them. Because anybody that goes out of their way to try to make somebody have a bad day is obviously insecure, and obviously, you know, it's even say people, you know, Trump. Everybody's so bothered by this guy. And part of his whole deal is to keep people on edge, because most people don't realize that he's a corporate president. He's not a president of the republic. And even that, you can't even, it's not even the truth, because the Confederation, they didn't call the leaders presidents. President, Secretary of State, like Vice President, all this stuff, they're corporate entities. They're not even human beings. They're playing a position. They're agents of the corporation. But neither here nor there. Agent like this, Trump is there to distract people from living their lives and doing what they need to do. Everybody wants to, like, you bring up that name, or Obama, or whoever, you want to bring up these names, and people are so caught up in, they want to argue about it. These are people you will never know. These are people that don't care about you. All they care about is keeping you confused. And as long as you're fighting with somebody else, then you're confused. We hurt the ones close. So, crabs in a bucket, crabs in a barrel, or however it's said. Everybody's trying to bring each other down, whereas we should be uniting and actually like standing up and cutting that off, because really they only have power because we give it to them. And anybody you don't like, if you're bringing up their name, or you're pointing a finger, you're always caught up in what they're doing, then that means you're not doing what you need to be doing. Because if anything, they should be influencing you to know what's wrong, to fix that and do better. But obviously there's not too many people that are really concerned with doing better. If every time you bring up these names, it's got to turn into an argument or a conflict somehow. They're not even, their characters being played. Because I cannot, well, maybe Trump is that way. Maybe he's really like that. And I've met people that are worse, but they didn't command so much attention. They weren't in a position to get so much attention, so they were easy to let go. And for me, I'm not really bothered by Trump, because he really doesn't have any power other than the power that is suggestion, and it's like I said, it's given by the people that actually even pay attention to him. And you're caught up in all that and not even realizing that there's so many issues that he's there to distract you from, like basic things, like Hugh. Everybody's caught up in pointing the finger and all this, but you're part of the problem. If you're not trying to fix it, you're part of the problem. So here I am. I'm trying to add something, at least a dialogue. So a conversation can like end the argument, because that means that when somebody else is talking, you give them that chance to talk, and then if you have something to go add, or maybe just something to that you need to have them see. It's the only way that anybody can hear is that somebody has to, when somebody's speaking, the other has to be listening. So, and that means that you're looking to settle whatever the issue is. But most people just want to be heard, and most of what's being said is a bunch of gibberish. It's not even proper words. Like, most people don't even speak English or whatever language they're trying to use. Most people don't even know what words they're using. You understand? Standing under, just confused and thinking that whatever the vocabulary, it means so much. Like, people using certain words that confuse you. If instead of asking what does that mean, people are they'll get bothered, and that's an insecurity. So they'll say, you're trying to talk down on me. It's like, well, hey, I'm trying to talk to you, so if you don't get it, then ask what I mean so I can explain. And that's me. Other people, maybe that's what they're doing, because you got a lot of people that are going into the indoctrination institutions, aka schools, colleges, or whatever these institutions are called, that are definitely doing that to you. You got these people calling themselves lawyers, but they're attorneys. They work for the Bar Association, a British accreditation registry. They're the enemies. If we're in this place that we're calling America, on this land called America, and these people over in Britain are controlling the systems here, they're obviously not meaning anybody here any good. So that's one thing people have to recognize. These corporations aren't even owned by Americans. And America is not just the United States. It's all the country. It's the whole landmass. Or maybe you don't. Like, most people don't. So and I know that the whole corporate institutions is like, okay, so the United States is of America. Yeah, of America. It's not America. So that's just whatever. But we're through like the past that everyone refuses to learn. We're only trying to hurt each other. There's a border between Mexico and the United States, but there's actually, that border is not fixed, and it's actually pretty much unlawful, because only through treaties was any of the land even allocated for the republic, which most people are confusing with the corporation now, because the republic is never mentioned. The U.S. citizen is not an American citizen. It's a corporate entity. It's the 14th Amendment. It's that ID that you see with all capital letters, but that's the social security number, the birth certificate, but that's not proof of you or me. Birth certificate, we were born, we weren't birthed, but those are words, and these words most people will never research. So you'll never know the truth. If you refuse to learn, then you'll only believe. So that's why I say either I know or I don't know. Beliefs, I don't really deal with that anymore, because beliefs are taking somebody else's word for it. You refuse to know. You refuse to study. You follow the Bible, but you don't even read the words in it. So you're waiting for the pastor or the priest or whoever these people are to tell you what they mean. And that's weird. You have the book in your hand, but you don't read it. Or they just tell you to read this verse, and then they tell you what this verse means, instead of you doing the research to find out what it really means. Because there's a lot of phrases that we use that people don't, it's funny. Like, I learned a lot of these phrases too, now that I didn't, and I used them over the years, and some of them are crazy, like rule of thumb. It had to do with like beating your wife, if I'm not mistaken. It was really ridiculous, having a stick that's no longer than your thumb that you could hit your wife with, and it wasn't considered abuse. Ridiculous. But there's even deeper phrases that worse meanings. And again, hurting the ones close. You're supposed to love your wife. You know, if you get into this relationship, you're supposed to love them. But what people don't know about that is when you deal with the corporate entity, it's buying and selling. It has nothing to do with love. And love is a word that we all have different ideas of what the meaning is. For me, it's acceptance and, you know, respect. But there's so much more that goes along with it, and it's a mutual thing. And if it's not mutual, like, actually true love is to let go, because if you can't see eye to eye and it comes to become a conflict, then it's the opposite of what you were actually there for in the first place. But this is what we've been conditioned to grow with, or to live with. Some of us watched like bad relationships, so we think that's how relationships are supposed to go. Some people just want what they want, so when it doesn't work the way that they want it to, because they were catered to all their life, then you must not love me. Actually, somebody that challenges you more than likely loves you, but it depends on how they challenge you. Because if they challenge you and it helps you grow, that's healthy. But challenging you just to be challenging you because they want to control you, that's a whole different situation. And that's why I had to. There's a lot of things I had to learn, you know, going through the relationships that I've had, and I had to take breaks, and taking the breaks, the only way that you can truly learn something is actually to step back and really go over what actually happened or what is happening. Because if you don't, then you're just being swayed. You're just going into the direction that feels the easiest, which in that case it's more than likely just ducking the abuse. But it's not even really ducking the abuse, because when you go under the wave crashes onto you. So, hurting the ones close. If you're in a relationship, you get married, and then you eventually have children. If your relationship isn't stable from the beginning, and you have a child, then you have all these people that have children. They're tethered for the rest of their life, regardless if we're talking 18 or whatever. That's both the child is both parents. You have people struggling to get favor or to use the child to actually hurt the other, and that's also hurting the child. And self-centered people don't really consider these things. So that's why we have a society of adult children. You know, I don't think everybody's that way, but there's a lot of people running around nowadays that expect that the life should be catering to them, but they don't even want to offer any type of assistance to people that need it when it's necessary. Capitalism has us all thinking we all fight. We're all at a war against socialism and communism, meaning communicating and living together, commune and socializing. And if you can't live with somebody else and you can't socialize with those people, then you're just, everything about your relationship is trying to get what you can get out of it. That's ridiculous. And that's what we have this is one of the biggest issues that we have, is that we're so confused in the material world. But what if all the lights shut off and all, you know, everything that we're used to having as a norm goes away? We have to learn how to communicate with each other, and those that don't, first is going to be a lot of trouble. This has been planned, and that's why the school indoctrination systems they've been up forever, and that's why most people think that they're better than somebody else because they got a grade for regurgitating the stuff that they put in a book that they told you the answers were in the back. So go read that if you want to learn. That's not learning. That's indoctrination. That's conditioning. The only way you really learn is to actually be interested in something, and you go and seek the knowledge yourself, and then work to get that into play. You have to make sure that this information that you're taking in works. And the only way you find that it works is by applying it. And a lot of people are just running around regurgitating words that they've heard or read in a book and saying that they're smart. But intelligence or smarts, this is only in the application, really. You know, or maybe you don't. But a lot of people are running around with just information. And information without knowledge is not something that's gonna really save anyone. You have to find out if it works, and if it works, then you can keep it moving. But if you've got a lot of information, you find out, you go to apply it, and it doesn't work, then you got to go back to square one, or you have to figure out what about this equation or this information, what is it about it that's wrong. And by that time, people are probably so confused that they wouldn't even know to think about. They wouldn't even think about that. Don't even think about that, actually, because this is something that's going on. So if you've only seen bad relationships, you've only learned to the hierarchy structure, you've only think capitalism, I got to get a good job, I got to have this car, I got to have this house that you never own. Because even the people that pay it off, they're still paying taxes on it. So how can you pay taxes on something that you own? That's the 14th Amendment, and it's the Social Security number at play. Because everybody that has anything that they're claiming, without having, registering it, like say with the registrar, but are going through this number and this entity made up by the federal government, you don't own anything. But you don't take my word for it. You have to research. That's why you cops pull you over, and they'll trick you into signing this contract, because the cop also signed it too. And if he didn't, then it's a unilateral contract, which is basically a promissory note. But that cop signing that document, like, is tricking you into a contract, which they should be sued for that. But because we don't know any better, we don't bother. And so they get us to go. They trick us into going into these courts, which these are magistrates, or they're priests for the Vatican, because they're corporate entities that are created, that are operating on the land through maritime admiralty law, the law of contracts, the law of the sea. So the Constitution won't save you. And because the Constitution, you have to know what it's about and what it actually means if you're talking about being a part of the Republic, first of all. Because the piece of paper, no piece of paper gives you rights. Actually, we're talking liberties when we're talking about paperwork anyways. So the Constitution only tells, if people really were to research it, it tells the government, which actually in Latin means control of the mind, tells these people that are acting as the people that are supposed to be acting on our behalf, it tells them what they can and can't do. And when it comes down to our rights, our inalienable rights, meaning what we're born with, not birth, because birth has to do with ships and all this, the whole maritime admiralty law, the admiralty law, or whatever. It all has to do with the sea. And if you really look into the words that they're using, these words all have to do with ships and docking and bonds, stocks and bonds, the bank, that banks, and when it comes with the court, the priest sitting in the black robe high up above, they're supposed to be on a different level. They're not even supposed to be technically there. It's played out like you're on a ship. When you cross those wooden barriers, then you're going into the jurisdiction of the captain, which that's what the magistrate's acting as. So he tells you what to do, because you're on his ship now. But they really don't have any jurisdiction unless you give it to them. And by ignorance of the law, that's what people try to excuse themselves with, but it won't save you. That's what they're telling you, is you have to know your rights And if you don't know your rights, then you're going to fall for liberties. So here we are, hurting the ones close because we don't know. We hurt each other. We're children in a playpen, and all we have to do is just choose to learn. Learn to do something different, because what you keep doing the same thing over and over and it's not working, then that's insanity. So we're in an insane asylum that everybody's really trying to run and they're all in straitjackets. We're all in straitjackets. Just restrained of our own ignorance, restrained by our own ignorance. So here we are. And it starts with our relationships, because if we respected our families, then we could actually figure out how to talk to them and they would know how to talk to us, and then we could actually sit down and discuss some of these things that are really the issues, instead of like trying to tax each other because we're getting taxed. It's the pyramid scheme. So you got like asshole sitting on top of you. What was it? There's I saw this meme on the internet. It's got vultures sitting on wires above each other, and it says from the bottom, the vultures on the bottom, all they see is assholes, and the ones above them, all they see is shitheads. And so this is what it is, because the so-called president, or these people that are living off of us, they're acting. They have a disdain for everyone, especially voters. You think you're doing something. Oh, we're gonna vote them out. They were hired. Corporations, you gotta look it up. They don't, if anybody votes them in, it would be the board of trustees. Those people that sit in there and they get their dividends. Actually, we're supposed to be getting dividends if we were knowing how to use the birth certificate and tax ID number properly, and actually holding the so-called government to task. If they're claiming to be something, then they have to play that position. But because people want to hold them to it, we're hurting each other, and they're laughing at us, and that's what we deserve if we can't actually get it together, because we're all fighting each other over crumbs. It's like ridiculous, but that's what people want. If people don't want to learn, and there has been war, there is war. We're pitted against each other. I mean, going to schools or these indoctrination stations, they make you by the time you get out, if you don't have proper instructors, because they're not teachers, because you have to teach yourself. You have to learn for yourself, because they'll give you the information, but you have to learn to apply it. So that's what will teach you what the truth is. But they have us, working for grades, for notes, and these notes, the federal note isn't money. If you read the Constitution, you find that out. And because most people refuse to read, and what I was saying is the school systems are created so that by the time we get out of them, that we don't want to deal with that shit anymore. But for the rest of our life, we have to learn, because there's so much about life that we don't even know about. And that's what people should be concerned with, is like that what you don't know. But most people are just trying to keep it mellow, keep it usual. But hey, that's what it is. Hasta luego.